everybody, and welcome back to another beautiful day in paradise for video editing. This is me, my company, Foresight Studios. I am Scott Halford. This class is actually a recorded lesson for my video editing students at Weber State University. So if you've stumbled across this, feel free and watch. This is very, very beginner level stuff. So if you're, and it's kind of unplugged, so if you want to have a nicely prepared lesson, more of a course style, then you might be a little bit frustrated with me. All right, so what we're doing today is we're getting a project started. So if you've never opened Premiere Pro before, this is a good lesson for you. So we're going to be downloading the files, organizing the files before importing, creating a new Premiere Pro project, importing footage into Premiere, organizing assets within Premiere, creating a new sequence, and then assembling clips on the timeline. Then we're at the end of today, you're going to have the first 5 clips for this scene in your timeline and edited together. So let's get started. If you are in Canvas and you go to the kids project setup, that's what today's lesson is. This link right here will take you to this page, and it'll say the file's too big, but what you're going to be downloading it anyway. So you do a direct download, and it'll just save the zip file to your computer. A little dialog box might pop up and ask you if you want to unzip the file or just save it to your computer. You're going to be unzipping it either way, so I would go ahead and unzip it. Let's pretend right now that this folder is nope, sorry. Where did I put that? Oh yeah, it's on my Dropbox. That's where you're getting it, my Dropbox. All right, so this is what your folder is going to look like after you unzip the Missing LOL assets. We have this folder with some audio files in it and some video files in it. And that's everything you're going to need to have in order to complete this project. Now, let's pretend this is your external hard drive that you bought for this class. Theoretically, if you did the last lesson with me, you already have a Web 2300 folder inside your drive, the root of your drive. And then you probably have a couple of other folders that you created with me. Now, if you made a master set of all the files that you're going to need for any project, that's good. You can just duplicate that right now. And instead of calling this project 2 commercial, I'm just going to call this master set. So if you followed with me before, you could just duplicate this. I'm holding Option while I drag this down, and it'll create a copy of it. And you can rename this Project 1 Missing LOL. Okay. If you don't have a master set already, or if you are in the habit of creating folders as you need them, then I'm going to create a new folder by hitting Command-Shift-N, and I'm going to call this one Project 1 Missing LOL. And then I'm going to create another new folder, Command-Shift-N, and name this one Assets. And then go back here, create another new folder, call this one Working, and then create another new folder and call this Drafts. All right, so in the Assets folder, like I said, we have some audio files, but I'm going to break this up a little bit more specifically to music. And then recordings, and then create another new folder for footage, and then create another new folder for, so you can also right click and do new folder if you want to. When it comes to creating new folders and doing these key commands, sometimes I'll use my mouse and sometimes I'll use my keyboard. It really just depends on where my hand is and what's going to be fastest, because faster means you get jobs done quicker, which means you make more money. And I'll talk about that more a little later. All right, so like music, footage, and then I've got sound effects, SFX for sound effects. All right, so you can, in this assets folder, you can, from your downloads folder, you can transfer them all at the same time over to your external hard drive into your assets folder. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to just throw them all over. Or you can put them over in groupings, you know, get all your video files, select all those, drop them straight into the footage. But I'm going to go ahead, like I said, I just transferred them over all at the same time. So now with them all over here in my assets folder, I can take all of these .movs, which are the video files. So I'm going to put those in the footage folder. Grab this sound effect, this JG sound effect, the refrigerator with the open door. So I'm going to put that in the sound effects folder. And then all of these Tascam files with the .wav at the end, all the Tascam files were external recorders, audio recordings of all the footage. So I'm going to put that in the recordings folder. Then every other audio file, all these WAVs and MP3s, these are all music. So I'll put those in the music folder. Sometimes it's hard to see where my mouse is with the mouse click thing turned on. It's crazy. All right. With all that organized, we are ready. Oh, no. We need to create 2 more folders. Since we're going to be working with audio, we might want to create an audition folder or a sound folder. That's what I did it last time. And another one for our Premiere project. All right. Now we're ready to go over to Premiere. So I'm going to Command Tab. That brings up all these different programs that I'm working with. So Command Tab, or I think it's Control or Option Tab on PCs. You just tab, and it highlights the different apps, or you can just rub your mouse over it, and when you let go of your command button, that pops you over to Premiere. So I already had Premiere open. All right, so what we need to do is create a new project. So I'm going to click on New Project, and I'm going to call this Scott Halford, because that's my name. So I want you to put your name in there, and then dash missing LOL project. Well, just missing OL. That'll be fine. Now, the main thing you need to worry about is where this file is going to be located. So I'm going to click Browse next to Location. And here's a little trick. When you get one of these Save As dialog boxes or anything like that, you can go to Finder and you can drag the folder. Since I've already got it open in Finder, I can drag this over here and it'll automatically reroute this Save As dialog box to that Premiere folder. Otherwise, I got to go to my drive, go to my folder, go to my project 1, missing LOL, working, Premiere, and then choose. Okay, so that's going to create a Premiere project right there. So click OK. All this other stuff, this is stuff that you probably don't need to worry about unless you're getting a little bit more advanced with your file management. This scratch disk thing, this is going to create a couple of folders right where the project is. And you can change that if you want to customize it, but for this class, you'll probably want to leave it like this. All right, so that opened up Premiere, because Premiere can't be open without a project being open. So now let's do the 3 different ways of importing files. So the first one is to hit Command I. Command I will open up your import dialog box. So I'm going to go to the project 1 missing LOL folder, and then go to assets. Then I'm going to click on the sound effects folder and then select this sound effect. Click import. Now I want to have the organization, see that it didn't bring it into any folder or anything down here. And I want the organization of my project to mimic the organization in Finder or, your Windows Explorer. So I want to create a bin for the sound effects. So I'm going to right click in here and select new bin. And I'm going to create a bin called SFX. Now I can just click and drag that into the sound effects folder. And I can collapse that so that it stays tidy. Now let's try dragging a folder in here. So I'm going to take all of this music, the entire music folder, and drag it down in here. And what that does is it actually creates a bin for that folder for music. See, it all came in. Now, another way that you can import things into Premiere is you can double click on this negative space in the project panel. So I'm going to double click here, and I'm going to go to my recordings folder and just select the entire folder, not any of the contents. If I just select the folder, it'll import it as a folder for recordings. Now the next thing I can do is create a bin beforehand for footage, and then with the footage folder already selected, if I hit Command I and then navigate to the footage folder, select all the footage, click import, because I had that footage folder selected before I hit Command I, it knew that I wanted to have all that stuff go into the footage folder. Okay, so I kind of went through those a little fast, but there's all 4 different ways. You can hit Command I, import the assets, create a new bin, put the assets in the bin. You can drag and drop entire folders. You can drag and drop files. So if I wanted to do an individual file, I could do this 1 at a time or 2 at a time. Drag them into the project panel, and they'll import there. So, or double click on the project panel. All right, so there's many ways you can get them in. The last way I ever want you to import stuff into a project is to go up to the File menu at the top, look for Import, and click on it. Okay, that is the slowest way. My hand is already on my keyboard. My hand is already on my mouse. This is a big area to click on. This is a small thing to click on up here. So first tip for getting faster of the day is anytime you can't find something or can't figure out how to do something, tip number 1 is if you right click on anything, a drop down menu will show up and it'll give you all sorts of options of things you can do with that, whether it be on your timeline or up here, anywhere. If you right click on it, it'll bring up this menu that'll provide you with almost everything you can do with that asset or with that object without having to go up to your file menus. Now, if you don't know the keyboard shortcut yet, or you don't know if this isn't showing you anything, if you go up to any of your menus to try and explore what options are available to you, if you look on save your project. If you look to the right of that, Command S, you just taught yourself a keyboard shortcut. Save as, Command Shift S, like if you want to make a copy or rename it or anything like that, Command Shift S. Save as a copy, Alt Shift S. Capture, Command 8. We probably won't even be getting into capturing in this class because it's becoming a thing of the past. Import, Command I. That's how I know that importing files is Command I. All right. So, anytime you want to teach yourself a key command, look for it here. Insert F9. overwrite F10, and so on. All right, so that's how you teach yourself the key commands. The more key commands you can learn, the faster you're going to be. The faster you're going to be, the more money you can charge. Or let's say if someone says, hey, I have $100, can you do this for me? It doesn't matter to them whether you do it in 10 hours or 2 hours. The faster you can be at it, if they want to pay you $100 for it, get it done as fast as you can. All right, so that's why you want to be fast and efficient. All right, next thing. So we've downloaded, organized, created a new project. We've imported, we've organized our assets in the project. Now it's time to create a new sequence. Now, sequences can do two things. A sequence can either, I'm going to just type a note here. It can be your video, final video edit, or it can be a pre-edit or nested. Okay. Now we're going to get into pre-editing and nested projects, but let's just say right now we have a video file, and that video file is being referenced in Finder by Premiere. So when I do something in Premiere with this file, all Premiere is doing is looking at the video at this frame as it exists right here, okay, in my footage folder. If I use Premiere to make a cut, to put two different pieces together, that is called non-destructive editing or linear editing. It's not actually changing the files as they exist on your computer. What it's doing is referencing the different files and taking your commands and making a new video out of it. Now, when I say sequence, those sequence of clips put together, they can become, before you export it into a new file, they can become a clip inside another sequence, and that's called nesting. We will totally come back to that later in this class, like a ton. All right, so first up, we have all of our footage in the project panel. Let me teach you something about the workspace for Premiere. If yours doesn't look like this, I've actually got my color correcting workspace up. If you go up to your window menu, go to workspaces, here are key commands for the different workspaces. I think we should probably go to the assembly workspace because that is probably, actually, no, I don't like that workspace. Editing. Let's go to the editing one. I still have my Lumetri panel up over here, but that's okay. This is kind of where Premiere has gone. You got your project panel down here, and then you preview things up here. You take it down here, do the editing here. You see the final product up here. All right. There's lots of other stuff. You can customize these panels, move them around, do different things with them. But for the most part, this is pretty standard for a workspace. All right. We need to create a sequence in which this stuff gets edited. Premiere has made this very easy for us because, sorry, I got ahead of myself a little bit. These bins, you can view them in thumbnail mode or in list view. If you double click on a bin, it will open up and it's in a new tab. It may have opened up in its own little window like this, floating around. And it also may have opened up so that you can view all of these clips as thumbnails. All right. So that's how you can have your project panel open over here. And you got your footage files here. You double click on them, they come up here. But on a really fancy thing that Premiere can do is as you scrub over these thumbnails, you can go from left of the thumbnail is the beginning of the clip, and you can just rub your mouse over it and it'll show you all the way to the end of the clip. beginning of the clip, end of the clip. Okay. So that's one way you can preview these. You can even hit spacebar and it'll play it within, I think. Nope, just kidding. I thought it could. Like I say, I don't use Premiere all day, every day. I use Final Cut all day, every day. But yes, you can preview these in their thumbnail view here. And then if you want to have your project panel and this bin open at the same time, you can just drag this bin. See how these different parts are highlighting? You can drag any panel and dock it anywhere in your workspace to customize your workspace even further. So, you could double click on your bin for music, and then you could drag this bin over here and add it right here as a tab, so you can go back and forth between all your different assets in your different bins could be docked here. This is the kind of thing where having multiple monitors can come in handy, because you'll have a monitor here with your main workspace, and then you can have a monitor off to the side that'll have all these crazy panels. So like my second monitor could just be all of my bins and what's in my bins, so that I can see them in thumbnail view all the time. All right. So let's just create a new sequence from scratch, and I'll show you two different ways to do it. If I click on my new item button down here at the bottom of my project panel, click on new item, and then click sequence. Now look at all these folders. How are you supposed to know which one of these is right for you? You've got video settings, you've got audio settings, you've got frame rates, you've got sample rates, all this different stuff. It can get confusing to know which one you're supposed to use. We can do an AVCHD 1080p 24. That's actually pretty close to what we're going to need. And then let's just do it. Let's just use AVCHD 1080p 24. I can call this sequence 1, or I will call it my name. Dash missing LOL edit. Okay, click OK. And that will automatically open that sequence into my timeline panel, which is right here. All right, so we've got a bunch of audio and video. This is going to make sense soon. Now, let's just take this file, this 0598 file, and put it directly into this timeline right here. I actually did nail it with my sequence settings. These are settings that match the video. If I had created, I'm just going to go back in time here a little bit. I'm going to hit Command Z a few times. If I had created a new sequence that had different settings, like 720p, 30 frames per second, and I'm just going to call this Scott Halford. I keep misspelling my own name. Can you believe that? Missing LOL edit. And then I try dragging this video file into this timeline. It's going to give me this dialog box that says, hey, this clip does not match the sequence settings. Do you want to change the sequence to match the clip settings? You can say, if you really want to have mismatched settings, then you can leave it the way it is, or I'm going to select change sequence settings, and it will automatically change the settings of this sequence to match the video. Now, all of these clips were shot by the same camera using the same frame rate. You can get into projects that have different frame rates, different frame sizes, but we'll teach you how to deal with that later. All of these clips are 23.976. Now, I will say right now, as a rule of thumb, it is more important to get your frame rate to match your video than it is to get your frame size, because you can always change the size easily But if your frame rate of your sequence is different from the frame rate of your video, then the video will play bad. It'll play poorly. It'll just look bad. It'll get jumpy and skip frames and add frames and all sorts of stuff. So I would say if you are going to get nothing else to match your footage, I would do frame rate. All right. So we've created a sequence one way by going down to the new item, create sequence. I am going to delete this sequence. Now, if you want to do another way right now, actually there's 3 ways. Right now there is nothing in the timeline panel, okay? There's no sequences in here. If I just drag my first clip over to the sequence panel, boom, it just made a sequence out of that clip. It's this, and it's right here, right next to it. This is the little sequence icon right here. I can change the name of this to Scott Halp. Yeah, there I am misspelling my name again. Okay, so there's another way to do it. Another way to do it, so we already have a timeline loaded into the panel here. If I start bringing other clips in, it's just going to add those clips to that timeline. All right. But if I want to create a new sequence from a clip, let's go to the next clip down on the list, right click on it, and then select new sequence from clip. Boom. It just did the same thing, MVI 0598. And then I can rename this real sequence or whatever I want. And now since we've got 2 sequences here that have been opened in the project, take a look at what happens. The timeline panel right here now has 2 tabs in it, one for the first sequence and one for the second sequence. Now, here's what I was talking about. This is just really brief. Don't get too caught up on this. But if I drag this sequence to nest, I'm going to call it to nest. If I grab to nest and I drag it into this other sequence, it becomes a single clip that will play back all of the edits in this. Okay? I hope that makes sense to you. And then you can add more cuts to it. So this is called nesting. But cool thing, see how this goes blank right here and then it stops? If I double click on this in the timeline, I can do an edit in it here. It basically just, if I double click on it here, it opens up this tab. Okay, if this tab weren't here, it would then open it up in this timeline panel. So now I can go back over to a real sequence and those changes show up in this nested comp. So if you have a movie with multiple scenes, then what you can do is you can edit the scene, edit one scene together, put it into your full movie sequence, and then you can like reorder the scenes without having to grab multiple clips and multiple audio files and move them around. Okay, so there are more uses for nesting than that, but that's where we're going right now. All right, so really basically, we've created a new sequence. Now we have to assemble some clips on the timeline. All right. Either one of these sequences will work. So I'm going to go to real sequence. Well, I'm going to go to nest. I'm going to delete that from my project. I'm going to go to real sequence and I'm going to drag this from here to the side to put it outside of my footage bin because it's a sequence. It's not footage. It's an edit. So I can either leave this in the root of my project panel or, you guessed it, I can make a new bin and call it sequences. But this is a super, super small project, so just having this will be fine. So I'm going to rename this Scott Halford, missing LOL. All right. Now, let me go over to my project panel over here, or my timeline panel, and I'm going to delete this clip that I put on the timeline. Okay, so I'm just going to select it, hit delete. It's gone. And before I get going, I should tell you one more thing. I have my keyboard settings set to, okay, hold on. Let me add something here. Keyboard settings. All right, so we're adding something. Keyboard settings. You in your Premiere Pro main menu here, if you go to preferences, there are all these different preferences that you can do. Then you also have keyboard shortcuts. So if you select keyboard shortcuts or option H, you can customize all of your keyboard shortcuts. Or if you want to, you can use a default like the Premiere Pro default. Or I've been using the Final Cut Pro 7 default. But that's only because I've spent many years putting Final Cut Pro keyboard shortcuts into my muscle memory. So I find myself working faster in Premiere when I use Final Cut Pro shortcuts. But since we're going to be doing our test based on Premiere Pro keyboard shortcuts, I would leave yours at the Adobe Premiere Pro default because that's what we're going to be teaching. All right, so click OK. Keyboard shortcuts done. If you're having problems, which I might, if you're having problems playing back your audio, that's where this Premiere Pro preferences will come in handy. If you go to your audio hardware, you can set the output. So like if you have a pair of USB headphones that you're using, you can make sure that your output is set to the appropriate one. So this Thunderbolt combo, this is my, so this iMac Pro speakers, this is my on computer speakers, this is my studio speakers, this is my mixer, which doesn't have an output, it's only my input. So I just select that. If you have like a USB set of headphones and you haven't heard Premiere play anything, you just go into your preferences under audio hardware, under default output, you tell Premiere to play it out through those headphones. So even if your system, your audio settings on your system preferences are set to output through the Thunderbolt combo, unless Premiere can route it through whatever it wants to separate. And that's nice because if you want to hear it on different types of speakers, you just do different types of outputs. So anyway, so this is me. This is my mixer mixing together my microphone coming in. That's why I sound so great. At least I hope I sound great. Okay. All right, so let's go back over to Premiere. We're going to do the thumbnail view in just a second, but let's go to our, twirl down our footage folder, and let's look for our opening shot. Now I think it's this one of these last ones. This one. MVI 0605, that's our opening shot, okay? So like I said last time, if you want to play and stop something, see this blue bar? When I double clicked on this icon in my project panel, it activated my source monitor with this blue border that went around it. Okay, so that means this panel is the active panel at the moment. So if I hit spacebar, that will play this video file. Now I make a little mistake here at the beginning. And then I say, okay, here we go. And then I do this sweeping shot of my child's room. And action. Okay. All right, so I've watched the whole thing. Obviously, if we're making a finished movie, we don't want the camera operator and director saying, oh, here we go, and adjusting the shot. We want to open up with the part of the shot that we want to see, right? So what we need to do is pick the part of the shot that we want to go in. So I want it to start right here. I don't necessarily want my voice, but we can cut that out later. But since I want it to start here, I drug this play bar to where I wanted it to start. And then the key command for setting an in point, if you want to use your mouse, it's right there. But the key command is for mark in is I, there in the parentheses. So if you just hover your mouse over it, it's teaching you the shortcuts all the time. So I'm going to hit I on my keyboard, and that'll put this little highlight with this bracket right here that I can also adjust with my mouse. But now I'm going to scrub here to the end because I want right here at the end, as soon as she leaves the screen, pretty much right when she leaves the screen, that's where I want the out point to be. So I don't know if intuition is hitting you at this point, but I means in and O means out. And it's really convenient that they're right next to each other on the keyboard. So I and O, in, out. All right, so that's really easy to remember. So now that I've got my in and out points selected, I'm going to just grab this main thing right here and drag it down to my timeline. Now, for tidiness sake, I'm going to leave them on my timeline. I'm going to put them down here on video 1, and then the corresponding audio track will be audio 1. So they're right next to each other on track 1. And in doing so, it highlighted my timeline panel because Premiere is going to say, oh yeah, I assume if you put something down there, you're ready to start working in the timeline panel. But this is a teeny tiny little clip down here. I can't see it. So what I'm going to do is hit the plus. Well, it's equals, but it's the plus symbol on your keyboard up next to your delete key. So be careful you're not actually hitting delete. But your minus symbol on your keyboard next to that will zoom in and zoom out. Okay, so there's no excuse for going over to your toolbox right here and selecting your zoom tool, which it's not even there. Like Z is for zoom. If you want to, you can drag a box here and zoom in. Or you can hold down Option and zoom out, but it's not zooming out. Why isn't it zooming out? I don't know. I don't know how to use the zoom tool because I never do. All right. But if you want to preview this, here's a little pet peeve of mine. V tools. It didn't change. Your selection tool is almost always going to be V because we're in Adobe land. But your selection tool is going to be, mine says A. I need to make sure. Yeah, I need to go back up here. Make sure that oh, weird. Did it get changed? Selection tool V. Okay. Oh, this is weird. Yeah. All right. T. V. Selection tool. All right. It's working. It's just telling me the wrong things over here in the parentheses. All right. So what I see a lot of people do in their timelines is they go up here, and in order to get back to the beginning of their timeline, they actually grab it here and then like scrub it back to the beginning to make sure it's at the beginning. Anytime your timeline panel is active, all you have to do is hit the home key, and that puts you back to the beginning. All right. So I'm hitting my home key, and that's back to the beginning. Then I hit spacebar, and it's going to show me in my program panel what's happening in my final edit. Okay.
Action.
All right, cool. Let's put our next clip up. Now, our next clip will be my daughter running through the hallway, which because I shot it, I know it's this one. But if you look down here into your thumbnails palette, you can see that here's the hallway shot right here. Now see this little, hopefully you can see it. It's this green line down here at the bottom. That's kind of like your timeline. And as you scrub along, you can highlight a clip, and you can scrub that along. Now watch what I can do. I want her to come on. I can play it by hitting spacebar. That's how I can play it. You have to click on it first. All right. So if you click on it, move this little playhead along. I can preview it down here in thumbnail mode and hit O for out. And then I can scrub it back here and hit I for in, and it sets an in and out point. It narrows that green bar or that blue bar to what parts I want. Now watch. I can skip the source monitor altogether and put it on the timeline like that. Okay, so it's a really short clip. So I'm just going to go right here to preview my cut. So I put it on the timeline right here between the two. They're together. Okay, so then she runs in. All right, last clip, and I want you to get through 2 more after this, and then send me your project file. But the next one is right here where I want her to come into the room. Hit I there. Whoops, gotta select it. Hit I there. Drag this forward a little bit, and then hit out there. Drag it into my timeline. Now, you're going to do 2 more. You're going to get 5 clips on the timeline, and then next lesson we're going to start getting into J cuts and L cuts and how to adjust the audio and all that stuff. But for now, do you see what's happening here? She's running down the hallway. She's getting out the door. She's leaving the room here. What we're looking for is a cut on the action that connects the 2 clips together. It's called cutting on the action. You want them to fit together as though there is no stop to the action. So I'm going to just put my playhead right here because I want to watch this. So she leaves. All right. So what I should have done a worse job at this. But let me trim this out. You just need to get your first 5 clips on the timeline and try to make them match. Right now I'm just using my mouse to drag this out to the side, make some more room. This is a bad habit. You're going to learn better habits later. But as I drag this back, see up in my preview or up in my program monitor, I can see her coming around the corner. I'm going to make this longer on purpose. And then I'm going to put them back together. So watch what happens as she's running down the hallway. She looks like she's getting all the way down the hallway, but then she's back at the end of the hallway. Now that might be good considering we can't actually fully see into the kitchen, but she's getting to the end of the hallway, and then she's having to get to the end of the hallway again. What you want to do is cut this together so that as she's getting to right here, maybe halfway down the hallway, you trim this back so that in this clip, when she's about halfway down the hallway, that's when you want this one to start. Then when you butt them together like this, it looks like she's one continuous movement. Okay? All right. So that's where we are right now. You're going to get 2 more clips onto the timeline, and then hit Command S to save for safety. You're going to get 2 more clips onto the timeline so that you can have 5. And then once you're done getting your first 5 clips, you're going to send me your project file so that I can verify that you're at least with me on this. So just to review, your Premiere file should be in your Premiere folder. It's just this one. That's what you're submitting to Canvas. All right. So good luck. I'll see you when you have 5 clips on your timeline, and I will see you on the next lesson. All right. Thanks. See ya.